Matt Rhule and some key Husker players met with the media today, and man, they revealed some huge inside scoops. Breakout players on both offense and defense. Who's playing up to snuff? Who isn't? Some surprise Huskers who will be out for spring practice. How the new transfers are acclimating, an inside scoop to our NIL, and so much more. So in today's video, I'm going to go over everything you need to know and my thoughts about this bombshell day. So really quick, we have a lot to get into. Hit that like button if you're fired up. And also, if you support what I'm doing here on this channel, daily Husker football content all off season long, it takes 2 seconds and it really helps me out. Please hit that subscribe button. Once again, helps me out a lot. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. But without further ado, let's get into it, talking about Nebraska's huge press conference today where Matt Rhule sat down with the media. But not only him, there are a couple key Husker players that we haven't heard from before. All three of them new additions to this team: Dasan McCullough, Dane Key, and Rocco Spindler. We'll get to them because they shared a lot of good information that you're not going to get anywhere else. But let's start with Matt Rhule and what he said, because he revealed a lot of big-time nuggets. Now, let's get the bad news out of the way because there's a lot of good news that we're about to get to. Let's talk about the injury report. Who is out for spring practice? Let's get things started with the offense. There are no quarterbacks out. There are no running backs out. That is huge, especially in that running back room, because we need all hands on deck to find out who's going to be our running back too. This is where it gets a little dicey. In the wide receiver room, Demetrius Bell will be out for all of spring practice. Now, of course, he banged up his knee after the spring game of last year. He's a little bit behind with his recovery. In my opinion, this is not great news. I'm a big Demetrius Bell guy. You guys know how I feel. I think he's super athletic. He's primed to be, one of the better receivers on our team this year. It just pushes him back. He will be out for all of spring ball, along with Keelan Smith, who's going into his second year. In the tight end room, Mac Markway and Carter Nelson will be out for all the spring practice. We kind of already knew this. We've talked about this on the channel, but that just gives Heinrich Haarberg an opportunity and Luke Lindenmeyer to potentially start for the Huskers. Again, Carter Nelson, Mac Markway, they're going to be significantly behind when we get to fall. On the offensive line, this is probably the biggest concern for me. We have 4 big notable guys who will be out: Turner Corcoran, Gunnar Gatula, Henry Letufsky, and Teddy Prohaska. Now, that is a big deal because all 4 of those guys are competing to start. We only have 3 bona fide starters who will be available for spring practice. That's Elijah Pritchett, Rocco Spindler, and Justin Evans Jenkins. So besides those 3, it is going to be wide open in this O-line department, but that allows guys like Preston Tomoa, Grant Bricks to step up, maybe Sam Sledge, potentially start throughout spring practice and compete for that spot when we get to the fall. But it is a little bit concerning. You got 4 guys who are competing to start who are out in spring practice. That is not great. So definitely want to let you guys know about that. Going to the D-line, Jalen George is out. That was a guy who was impressing everybody in winter conditioning, but he recently got banged up. Sua Lafoto is also out. That's a nose tackle going into his 3rd year. Linebackers, 2 true freshmen. Dawson Merritt still recovering from his shoulder injury. You thought he might have been back by spring practice. I did, but they're going to be safe here, and he's going to be out for all of spring ball. And then along with Pierce Newberry, who I'm very high on, but also a true freshman. Last but not least, the secondary, Evan Taylor, Jameer Khan, and Roger Gradney all out. Jameer Khan, that's a big loss for the Huskers. I expected him to compete for a starting role. He's going to be a little bit behind now. And then also should mention that Tristan Ovano will be limited throughout spring ball. I don't know what we're doing here, Tristan Ovano, in my opinion. I don't think he should be on the roster in the fall. If he's still dealing with his groin injury, I don't know if it'll ever fully recover, and I don't think he's going to beat out John Hall anyway. So wanted to tell you guys about those injuries, my thoughts. Let's get to the good news here. Let's talk about the nuggets that he dropped. He talked about Dylan Raiola, as you'd expect. Every single press conference, we're talking about Dylan, his development. And something that he keeps mentioning in every single press conference is how he's focusing on Dylan Raiola losing weight. I don't think he meant to say how much Dylan was weighing at last year, but he said that Dylan was 240. And that's a lot more than we thought. At the Husker website, it listed about 225, 230. Makes a lot more sense, though. Dylan was at 240 last year. And then Matt Rhule specifically said, you can't be a very good quarterback and be 240. So, he's focused on slimming out right now, continuing to gain good weight, not fat. But he also said that it's very important for him to have a running element to his game. He's continuing to develop that. It's very important for Dylan Raiola to use his feet on 3rd downs, to get a conversion. So it's good that Matt Rhule mentioned that. But again, something he keeps harping on. He's being harsh about Dylan. He said, hey, we got to lose some weight here. And I think that's exactly what he's going to do. We're going going to see a lot trimmer version of Dylan Raiola. He also said that Dylan, needs to start executing as a leader. That last year it was all about him putting his head down and earning everybody's respect. That can't be the case this year. He's got to continue to earn. He's got to be a leader, be vocal, and he thinks that he's doing that. So that was talking about Dylan. He also just emphasized in general, talking about these true sophomores, we can't have any sophomore slumps. We can't have Jacory take a sophomore slump. We can't have Vincent Shavers because Vincent Shavers is going to start. We can't have a Willis McGahee. He mentioned those guys specifically. So they're doing whatever they can to make sure these sophomores continue to progress and to become one of the best players, not only on this team, but in the entire country. He talked about, again, how spring practice, just expect a lot of competition. This is something that we've talked about. I told you this on the channel for months. They're going to conduct this like an NFL training camp. Guys, don't have a spot on the team. You're just going to try to compete for that spot. You might get cut. You might not be on the too deep. We'll see. But they're going to treat this like an NFL-style competition. Matt Rhule also had a really good nugget. He said that last year during spring ball, it was all about competition. That was really the only thing they cared about. This year, it's more so about excellence, honing your craft, in situational football. You should love that comment by Matt Rhule because that's exactly what we need to practice. Situational football. When the game gets tight, you got to feel acclimated. You got to feel comfortable. How can you feel comfortable when the game is actually uncomfortable? Because that's when the best teams thrive and show up and win football games. Okay, that's what Iowa does. They feel the most comfortable when the game gets uncomfortable. And that's why they get lucky all the times. Because it's not necessarily them getting lucky. Sometimes, when you're a good team, you get lucky a lot more. So Nebraska, they're trying to get lucky by developing their experience in situational football. So wanted to mention that. Let's talk about the quarterback room, not Dylan Raiola, but the competition. Matt Rhule mentioned a nugget that I thought was super interesting. Now, I've told you guys over the past couple of weeks that I think that Marcos Davila is going to be our quarterback too. From a Matt Rhule perspective, it definitely does not look like that's the case right now, and that's expected. But he said that Jalen Gramstad has been really impressing people, that they really wanted him back, and we knew that already. But they said that Jalen Gramstad pretty much is the quarterback too right now, that he loves the way that him and Dylan train together. Of course, that Jalen Gramstad's a winner, so you feel good about Gramstad. But he also had a really interesting nugget that he said that we didn't need to take a quarterback in the portal. But Dana Holgorsen basically pounded the table to get Marcos Davila, that was his guy. He said, yep, we absolutely want a guy like Marcos Davila. So from my perspective, I think that Gramstad is more of a Matt Rhule, Glenn Thomas type of guy. But in Dana Holgorsen's grand scheme of things, he wants Marcos Davila to be that quarterback too because that's his guy. So would watch out for that. We talked about us in our NIL. So we're in really good financial shape. That we're ahead of the curve when it comes to NIL. We're not in debt like a lot of these programs. He talked a little bit about how we can't have everything. These non-conference games. You can't have a super hard schedule and then complain about being screwed over by the Big Ten, right? You can't have a super easy schedule and then complain about not playing the best teams in the world. So you can't have it both ways. At the end of the day, this is the best for our team, is to play an easy knockout schedule, gain this extra revenue. He also mentioned something about the uniforms. He said that there's not enough money to go around right now. And this is something we talked about last offseason when they announced that they weren't going to have alternate uniforms. He said that the recruits are constantly asking him about alternate uniforms. When we're going to wear these uniforms, when we're going to wear the all whites, when we're going to wear the all reds. I think Matt Rhule understands how important uniforms are because it's huge from a recruiting aspect. And this is something that I told you guys last offseason. Everybody gave me crap for it. They were like, Wilson, if the recruits care about uniforms above everything, then they shouldn't come here. Well, then Nebraska's not going to have very many recruits. Recruits care about uniforms. I mean, that's just the way it is. They care about drip. They care about how they're looking. That's just the way it is, right? And I think Matt Rhule, when he mentioned those uniforms, expect some pretty nice alts this year because he understands how important they are for recruiting. These Florida kids, these Georgia kids, they care about that. You think Jacory Barney doesn't care about what he's wearing on Saturdays? He doesn't want to wear a all brown uniform. And I'm just using an extreme example here, but expect alternate uniforms to come back, Matt Rhule. That's a little bit of a nugget that people weren't talking about on social media. A couple other nuggets here before we get to the players who talked. Again, he talked about the new coaches, man, how Eckler's bringing the energy. He loves Terry Brown. He says Terry Brown also just very energetic. That Terry Brown actually got offered a defensive line coaching job at the NFL to be a full-on assistant coach, defensive line coach, and he declined it to come to Nebraska. So that just shows you, man, he wants to be here. That he had some pretty good offers. He mentioned that Corey Campbell, our strength and conditioning coach, also got offered by the NFL twice, and he declined it. So, man, I'm telling you, if other programs and NFL teams are calling, you are doing something right. We have a very good coaching staff here, and he talked about Mike Eckler, man. Said Mike Eckler is bringing the energy. He said that he didn't even want to hire Mike Eckler, but everybody around him wanted to. And then at the end of the press conference, he said, you guys were right. I was wrong. Mike Eckler's a great guy, and he said that there's Mike Eckler, 6 a.m., they're going to work, they're looking over their special teams meetings, and Mike Eckler, even at 6 a.m., man, he's, he basically has all this energy, and Matt Rhule's just not used to it. But again, he said that initially he didn't want Mike Eckler because he heard all these things, and he just didn't want these big celebrity coaches to come here. But he just, as the process went on, when he was trying to hire the special teams coach, he couldn't stop thinking about Mike Eckler. He said, okay, I got to bring this guy in. So wanted to mention that. And then last thing, he kind of mentioned a breakout player, I think inadvertently, but he mentioned Bryce Turner, who's a DB going into his second year with the Big Red. Actually, I believe he's going to his third year. And he said that Bryce Turner is up to 210 pounds, and that he's going to be a prominent player on special teams, that Mike Eckler really likes him. So would put that in your back pocket. All right, let's get to the transfers. All three new transfers talked, so we didn't hear any returning faces. These are all brand new guys. They had a lot of nuggets to share as well, probably as good as what Matt Rhule had to say. Now, the three guys, once again, Dane Key, Deshaun McCullough, Rocco Spindler, all three of those, in my opinion, the reason why they picked these three to talk is because these three are the transfers who are shining the most. Now, we've talked about we talked about Dane Key and Deshaun McCullough being the two ones who, have shined the most. I told you guys that in my winter conditioning Nuggets video. Rocco Spindler, though, again, hustling in silence. He's going to be a starter on this O-line, no question about it. He's going to be our best offensive lineman. So those three, just take that for what it's worth. If they're talking to the media, those are the three best transfers who are performing so far. Let's get to Dane Key first. Dane Key, basically, man, the way he talks, it just makes it sound like he's trying to get paid this year. Like, this is just, it's all about getting into the NFL, and that's how it should be. Last year of eligibility, he's all about putting up stats, helping this team win, but he's trying to get paid. He's trying to be a first-round NFL draft pick. He said that the main thing he's trying to focus on is to play faster, to play with more energy, to play every single stat for the Huskers and play at an elite level. He said that, playing in the SEC, and say what you want about the SEC, they have the best secondaries of any conference in football. Take that to the bank. He said that it's only going to make him better for the Big Ten. He's played against first-round corners, and he expects to dominate this year. He said that, he had a really good nugget about Dana Holgorsen. He said that when he was on a visit here at Nebraska, he met with Dana Holgorsen, and at the very end, when he was about to leave, Dana pulled him aside and said, hey, Dane, if you don't want to be that guy, then don't come here and go back to Kentucky. And Dane Key, the second he said that, he's like, all right, I want to be here because, I like the challenge. I like the challenge. I want to come here and be the guy. Not only to be the best player on this team, to be the best wide receiver on this team, but to be the guy who's going very high in the NFL draft next year. So thought that was good by Holgorsen. Again, this is Holgorsen's offense, man. This is his side of the football. Matt Rhule really has no oversight over it. Dane Key shouted out two players in particular, Hartley Gilmore and Ja'Cory Barney. So Ja'Cory Barney's just different, man. He hasn't been around a player like Ja'Cory Barney ever. I'm telling you, it's not just Dane Key that's shouting out these two players. It's the coaching staff, too. It makes me think that those three are going to be your starters. That it's going to be Ja'Cory Barney, Dane Key, and Hartley Gilmore. Because we haven't heard that much about Isaiah Hunter. I don't know. But that's just the way it seems right now. Because, Matt Rhule, last press conference, he did the exact same thing. He hyped up Dane Key, Ja'Cory Barney, Hartley Gilmore, and then didn't really have much to say about Isaiah Hunter. Interesting. And then last but not least, Dane Key said he was coming here because of Dylan. We've already told you guys that, and that's pretty much common knowledge, right? Good wide receivers want to play with good quarterbacks. That's why we got the transfers that we did. Going over to Deshaun McCullough, he confirmed that he's playing Jack next year. Again, I'm not a huge fan of that. I like him playing in space, but he said personally he prefers Jack, so whatever he prefers, it is what it is. He's going to go up to 240 this year, so that's, again, gaining some weight. And it should be mentioned that, his best year of his career, his true freshman season at Indiana, he played Jack. He was a primary edge rusher, so that's pretty much where he thrives. But you like his athletic ability pretty much all over the field. He said he wants to play closer to the quarterback. He mentioned Williams Nwaneri. He said that of all the guys, Williams Nwaneri is impressing him the most, that he's up to 270, which is huge for Williams. And he came here about, I want to say 250, so he's already gained about 20 pounds of muscle, which is absolutely huge for him. He needs to continue to gain weight. I want him to get up to 280, 285 by the fall. But again, he said that Williams Nwaneri, man, he's an athletic freak in that. And I quote, Deshaun McCullough said this, that he expects Williams Nwaneri to be a future first-round NFL draft pick. So just take that for what it's worth. And overall, man, Deshaun McCullough, he just screamed being a leader, right? Like how everybody's looking up to him in this room. He said that there's a bunch of Kansas City guys on this team, and these Kansas City guys came up to him and said, hey, I used to go to your games when I was in middle school, because of how big of a recruit Deshaun McCullough was. So again, guys like Isaiah Mosey are heavily look up to, a guy like him. Williams Nwaneri heavily looks up to a guy like him. So Deshaun McCullough just got to continue to be a leader. He's going to be a player who I think will get a single digit. Last but not least, Rocco Spindler talked. He didn't give too many nuggets, as you'd expect with an offensive lineman, but I think he said one thing that was really interesting. He said that he's never seen Matt drills as competitive and as aggressive as what he saw this winter. And now it should be noted that Rocco Spindler is transferring in from Notre Dame, who just made the national championship. So if our mat drills are more competitive, more aggressive than even Notre Dame's, that says something. I think, and that's a very good sign. That means that people are bought in, that the strength conditioning coach and Corey Campbell, this whole program, it's taking guys to a different level. And I think Rocco Spindler, he was very impressed with it. He said that, we've got to be an O-line driven team once again, that he's going to continue to be a leader, try to develop these guys alongside him, these younger players. I think that's important, again, for him to take a guy like, Preston Tamoa under his wing, continue to develop him, and a guy like Grant Brooks as well. And then Rocco Spindler, once again, just sound like he's trying to get paid, man. He's trying to put his best foot forward here, help us win, but he's trying to go in the first NFL draft next year, and that's going to be huge for us for recruiting, man. Because if we can get Deshaun, Dane Key, and Rocco Spindler in the first round, my gosh, we're going to be getting some good recruits, because we can promise that, hey, if you come here, we're going to develop you the exact same way. We're going to take you to the next level. So, all right, guys, those are the primary nuggets that we learned today in the press conferences with 3 players and, of course, Matt Rhule. Let me know your thoughts down below about the stuff that you learned, the things that you thought were the biggest nuggets. Let me know in the comment section. Hey, if you made this far in the video, you know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe. As always, folks, go big your head. Go, Matt Rhule. See you in the next one.